Welcome back. This week, the House of Lords will start 2 days of debate on the EU Withdrawal Bill. Joining me from, fair to say, opposite sides of the Brexit debate, but the same side of the chamber, Baroness Altmann and Lord Tim Bell. Lovely to see you both this morning.
Good morning, Neil.
How bad is it going to be, Lord Bell, as soon as it gets to the House of Lords?
It won't be particularly bad. It's a very open debate. It's a piece of legislation which the government wants to pass. It wants it to be as good as possible, so to listen to amendments and to listen to argument.
It's going to be plain sailing then, I presume, for the government.
Well, I don't think it will be plain sailing for the government, but I hope that the government will listen to the genuine concerns expressed from all sides of the House of Lords about what we are going to be able to achieve for the future constitutional status of the UK and the legal framework which we are heading to.
So where exactly do your objections lie? People continually talk, and committees in the House of Lords have mentioned this on a number of occasions, but it's the Henry VIII powers which many people seem most exercised by.
I think that is one of the big issues. You know, the country that we live in has always been a parliamentary democracy where Parliament is sovereign. And Parliament is meant to scrutinise and approve legislation that will affect the country. It is not a country where the executive, a small group of ministers, is allowed to just take decisions on major pieces of legislation, whether it's primary or secondary legislation, and override parliamentary scrutiny. So that's certainly one issue. There are other issues as well, such as, you know, what powers you give to the devolved administrations and what happens to the border in Northern Ireland. Those types of issues, a meaningful vote for Parliament, which is related to the whole area of parliamentary sovereignty, I think will come under significant scrutiny across the House.
I mean, it does strike me that there are some fairly fundamental differences of opinion in the House of Lords, Lord Bell, and given the makeup, given the balance, it's going to be very difficult for the government's vision of Brexit as it currently stands.
Leave chamber. It's very, very heavily in that direction. But that's not the point. This isn't a political debate. It's not about whether we stay or go. There's been a referendum and it voted in favour of going, and that's the position we're in. And so that's what we'll do. But this is a piece of legislation, the purpose of which is to make sure the statute book is correct. And therefore it's not 100% accurate. It needs improvement. Even Keir Starmer said that at the end of the debate, third reading, that the bill was a better bill. And it's worth remembering that the House of Lords is not elected, and it's been passed in the House of Commons. 247 Labour MPs voted against it without any alternative idea whatsoever. And it was passed, third reading, and this is second reading. As it happens, the convention in the House is that there's not normally a division at the second reading, so there probably won't be any division. There may be odd division. The Liberal Democrats are going to make a fuss, they always do. But we all know what their position is.
I mean, it certainly does sound like it's the committee and the report stages where things are going to get very, very, very difficult. But do you understand, though, the position of some of the leading Brexiteers in the lower chamber, that if the bill comes back in a drastically different form, a significantly different form, it will be a failure of the Houses of Parliament to deliver on the will of the people?
No, I think it's a failure to deliver the will of the people if it disagrees with the House of Commons.
Do you understand that view as well, Baroness Altmann? The idea that a decision was taken in June 2016, which essentially gave the government the nod to leave the European Union and then gave them the freedom to decide what that exit from the European Union should look like. Not the House of Lords, but the government.
Absolutely. The role of the House of Lords is not to override the Commons. The constitutional role of the House of Lords is to scrutinise and advise if legislation needs, in their view, some significant change or even minor change. You know, we have in the House of Lords the leading judges in our entire legal system. The British people voted in 2016 to leave the EU, and Parliament has respected that decision by triggering Article 50 and is now in the process of trying to deliver what those people who voted leave voted for. What were they promised? Can we deliver it? How can we do that? That is the process that we're going through.
Have you arrived at an answer? Because I could really do with one about what the kind of the consensus view of the British public is when it comes to leaving the European Union. I mean, surely at the heart of it is the idea of divergence, that we can go in a different direction to the European Union. And what we're hearing from, amongst others, the Chancellor doesn't suggest that that's the path that he wants to take anyway.
Well, I think what the Chancellor is doing is continuing to respect the result of the referendum, which promised people a lot more money for the NHS, £350 million a week perhaps, which promised them that it would be very, very easy to negotiate new trade deals. It promised that we would all be better off. It promised that there wouldn't be changes to the Northern Ireland border. There were lots of promises made which people who voted leave voted on the basis of. Now, what the Chancellor is saying is, if we want to deliver as much as possible of what the Leave side promised the British people, then we need to go in a particular direction. The British people did not give us a blank cheque to do whatever we liked. The parliamentary democracy that we're in has respected the vote of the referendum. It has triggered Article 50 and is now negotiating with the EU. And what we are trying to do is make sure that we don't just have Brexit at all costs. We have a Brexit that will be in the national interest and that will deliver for the British people what the majority of them voted for.
But Lord Bell, wouldn't a soft Brexit, where we have continued regulatory alignment in a number of areas with the European Union, where we continue to be under the ECJ, where workers' rights are enshrined in UK law, I mean, is that the Brexit that you envisaged?
I don't. No, it's not, and it's not what I envisaged. It's not what I voted for. And it's not what anybody I know voted for.
So what can we do about the House of Lords then?
The House of Lords has a power of scrutiny, and it will scrutinise, and it'll debate, and it'll discuss, and it'll come to a conclusion. It'll pass amendments, it'll not pass amendments. Some of those amendments will be passed later on by the House of Commons. Some of them will be rejected. That's what's happened. It's a non-contentious bill.
Whilst we have both of you, once again we have allegations being laid at the door of members of the upper and lower house about access and being paid for. Are we at a stage yet where we can legitimately ask what benefit there is to the political system by having our elected and unelected representatives able to seek employment outside of their main job?
Well, inevitably they have to pay for their living. And they choose to do what they choose to do. The story in the Sunday Times is rubbish. It's just drivel. It's drivel. It's a ridiculous overstatement. It's offensive, and it's just a piece of nonsense.
Drivel, overstated piece of nonsense? I
think it is really important that members of Parliament are seen to uphold the highest standards in public life, that they are an example to others. I haven't seen the programme, one just sees allegations. I think that my experience is the majority in the House of Lords and in the House of Commons are decent, law-abiding people who respect the position that they have been given by the British people or by the British Constitution. But I would just like to remind everyone that the bill going through the House of Lords at the moment is not about frustrating Brexit. What this bill is about protecting the constitutional integrity and legal framework for our future. And it's really important that it isn't painted as if Lords are trying to frustrate the will of the people, because that is not what is happening. We are trying to work in the national interest and advise MPs who ultimately cannot be overridden. The House of Lords is a secondary chamber. The primary decision must rest with the elected House of Commons.
Fun and games for political journalists, though, of course. Baroness Altmann, Lord Bell, lovely to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.